The Three Principles. Welcome, traveler of shadow and light, to the myth of the fallen ones. Here, we descend not for spectacle, but for remembrance. We do not seek entertainment, we seek inheritance. The inheritance of those who once looked into the fire and saw not destruction, but revelation. My name is Elnad El Kasmenaay, and this chamber is the third in our great work. Tonight, we speak of the three principles: sulphur, mercury, and salt, the triune code by which the ancients explained the dance between soul, mind, and matter. These are not chemicals, they are the pillars of existence. The ancient adepts said that to understand them is to understand the architecture of the universe and the map of your own being. Long before science divided the world into equations, the alchemists knew the soul was not separate from the stars. They saw that every person was a microcosm, a universe folded inward, echoing the divine structure of creation. To them, these three principles were not substances, but laws of life itself: the fire that moves, the breath that reflects, and the form that endures. Sulphur, mercury, salt, spirit, soul, and flesh. The trinity of transformation. Let us walk then through each one, not as scholars dissecting symbols, but as initiates remembering an ancient language, the language of our becoming. 1. Sulphur, the soul. Sulphur is the breath of fire, the passion that gives motion to being. It is the soul's will to burn, to rise, to transmute. The ancients called it the volatile principle, the one that ignites transformation. It is the inner sun that insists on radiance. Even when buried in the dark, sulphur speaks in the voice of creation. It is desire not as lust, but as longing for completeness, the magnetic pull between what is and what could be. It is the cry that first woke the stars. In myth, sulphur is Prometheus' stealing flame. It is Lucifer, not the fallen devil, but the light-bearer before corruption, the impulse of awareness that dares to know. It is the courage to move from ignorance to understanding, no matter the cost. But sulphur is dangerous when unbalanced. It burns too fast when fed by pride. It suffocates when starved by fear. In human life, it becomes the restlessness that mistakes motion for purpose, or the fury that consumes its own vessel. To master sulphur is to learn to burn without destruction, to let passion refine instead of dominate. Sulphur is the soul's first trial. Every seeker meets it when faced with desire, not to deny it, but to see through it. The alchemists knew that sulphur must be married to patience before it can reveal wisdom. Otherwise, the flame devours its alchemist. In you, sulphur lives as every hunger for truth, every act of creation, every moment your spirit refuses numbness. It is the force that says, "I am alive, therefore I must become." It is rebellion against stagnation and devotion to transformation. 2. Mercury, the mind. If sulphur is fire, then mercury is wind, fluid, swift, ungraspable. The ancients called it the principle of mediation, the messenger between realms. In Mercury lives the genius of connection, thought, reflection, imagination. It is the bridge between heaven and earth, the interpreter of dreams, the voice that shapes chaos into meaning. Mercury wears many faces. In myth, it is Hermes, the trickster and the guide of souls. In Egypt, Thoth, the scribe of divine order. In the East, it is the breath of the Tao, effortless, moving through all things. Mercury dissolves what sulphur hardens. It cools the fire, then shapes its light into language. Where sulphur acts, Mercury perceives. Where sulphur burns, Mercury mirrors. The two together form consciousness, energy married to awareness. Without Mercury, passion is blind. Without sulphur, thought is sterile. The work demands their union, insight born from heat, and heat disciplined by reflection. In the human psyche, Mercury is imagination, that shimmering bridge where the invisible becomes visible. It is what allows a dream to become an idea, and an idea to become a deed. But Mercury, like sulphur, must be purified. It loves to trick itself, to mistake cleverness for clarity, illusion for insight. When the mind serves ego instead of truth, Mercury becomes quicksilver madness, beautiful, unstable, dangerous. The true alchemist learns to still the Mercury within, to hold the mind like a mirror polished by silence. Then reflection becomes revelation. Thought ceases to chatter and begins to sing. This is the beginning of wisdom, not to think more, but to think cleanly, to let awareness flow without resistance. Mercury is the principle that allows communication between all levels of being. It is the subtle current that connects dream and waking, spirit and matter, past and future. When Mercury moves freely, the soul speaks and the body listens. When it is blocked, confusion reigns. The work of Mercury is the art of flow, the sacred science of balance in motion. 3. Salt, the body. If sulfur is fire and Mercury is air, salt is earth, the sacred solidity that holds the other two. It is the principle of manifestation, of endurance, of form. Salt is the body, not merely flesh, but all structure that gives shape to spirit. It is what allows the invisible to become visible, what makes heaven measurable in the weight of matter. The ancients revered salt as the keeper of the covenant between the divine and the material. In every temple, salt was used to purify, to preserve, to seal. It was said to contain the essence of permanence, incorruptible, honest, grounding. In the body, salt is not only bone and blood, it is the instinct that remembers how to live, the quiet intelligence of form. Salt teaches the work of limitation, the holy discipline of boundaries. It reminds the seeker that even the infinite must take form to be experienced. Without salt, sulphur and mercury would vanish in abstraction. Pure potential, no embodiment. Salt is what allows a dream to walk the earth. But when forgotten, salt becomes rigidity, habit, fear of change, worship of the visible. The same principle that grounds can also imprison. That is why the alchemist must purify salt as carefully as fire or thought. The body must not be worshipped nor despised. It must be understood as the vessel of spirit. To honor salt is to honor incarnation itself, to see the holiness in breath, labor, and rest. It is to understand that divinity is not elsewhere. It is here, folded into skin and bone, waiting to be recognized. The great work is not to escape the body, but to awaken within it, to feel the sacred weight of being alive. Salt is humility made matter. It does not boast, it holds. It endures the flame and bears the mark of the stars. It reminds you that spirit without form is a whisper lost to wind, and form without spirit is dust. Only together do they sing. 4. The reconciliation, spirit, soul, and flesh. In the union of sulphur, mercury, and salt, the alchemist perceives the trinity of being, spirit, soul, and flesh. These are not separate, but three notes of one chord. To separate them is analysis, to reunite them is wisdom. The ancients saw that the universe itself mirrors this structure. The heavens correspond to spirit, pure potential. The stars and minds correspond to soul, motion, and mediation. The earth corresponds to flesh, manifestation. Together they form the living temple of creation. In you, the same triad sings. Spirit is the spark of awareness, the unconditioned witness behind all experience. Soul is the movement of that awareness through desire, thought, and feeling. Flesh is its manifestation, the sacred instrument through which spirit learns its own depth. To reconcile them is the heart of the work. It is not achieved by escape, but by integration. Spirit must descend into matter without losing its light. Matter must rise toward spirit without denying its weight. The alchemist's task is to make of their life a bridge, a place where heaven and earth remember they were never divided. This reconciliation is not an event, it is a rhythm. Every moment offers the chance to realign the triad, to breathe as unity. When you act with passion refined by wisdom, and wisdom embodied through care, you become the living philosopher's stone. The Trinity teaches that salvation is not elsewhere, it is equilibrium. The work is not to transcend, but to include, to see that even the lowest element contains the highest, if tended with reverence. Every impulse is a messenger, every limit a teacher, every sorrow an invitation to balance what has fallen apart. When sulfur, mercury, and salt reconcile within you, the world itself begins to mirror that harmony. Thought becomes luminous, action becomes sacred, being becomes effortless. You are no longer a seeker of fire. You are the flame's articulation. 5. The living trinity in the modern world. Now we stand in a different age, one of screens instead of scrolls, signals instead of stars. But the work has not changed, only its symbols have shifted. Sulphur burns in our desires for progress and recognition. Mercury dances through circuits and code. Salt bears the weight of our exhausted bodies trying to remember rest. The same trinity moves, unacknowledged but eternal. To live alchemically today is to bring these principles back into dialogue. The soul has not vanished. It has scattered across notifications, mirrors, and noise. The modern alchemist's task is not to flee the machine, but to reintroduce spirit into it, to remember that every transmission is sacred if consciousness attends it. In a world obsessed with speed, sulfur must learn stillness. In a world drowned in data, mercury must learn silence. In a world estranged from the body, salt must relearn tenderness. The fire, the breath, and the form must remember each other, or humanity will continue to burn without illumination. Alchemy today begins in attention. Every act becomes a crucible, a conversation, a meal, a breath. To speak with care is to purify mercury. To create with love is to ennoble sulfur. To rest with awareness is to sanctify salt. This is not metaphor. It is physics of the soul. Look around. The same elements burn in the sun, circulate in your veins, hum in the wires carrying this voice. Spirit has never left matter. We have only forgotten how to listen. To remember is to redeem the world. The great work continues, not in laboratories of gold, but in the quiet transformations of daily life. Every honest act is an experiment in integration. Every moment of awareness is a step in transmutation. When you speak truth, you refine sulfur. When you think clearly, you polish mercury. When you live kindly, you fortify salt. And so the Trinity lives, ancient as flame, modern as breath. Conclusion: the ever-living flame. What is left when sulfur, mercury, and salt are reconciled? The ancients called it spirit, not as religion, but as recognition. It is the awareness that all divisions are temporary gestures of one eternal movement: creation, reflection, endurance, the heartbeat of existence itself. The great work is not an achievement. It is a remembering. To live alchemically is to let every thought, every feeling, every motion serve the same vow, to bring heaven and earth back into conversation. The fire burns still. The wind speaks still. The earth endures still. And you are their meeting place. Walk as the living crucible, Elnad. The world needs your flame.